we'll go ahead and get started if everyone is ready. I'll declare a quorum and say we're in session. The date is 5 March 2018. I'm trying to get in the habit of doing that for the camera. In front of you, you've got a printout of this. Most of this came from Mark's Excel spreadsheet. These are the 5 companies we've narrowed things down to in various formats here. And then I put together a side-by-side of all these little categories just for your amusement. So I thought what we could do is just go around the table and find out if anybody has a preference and why, what they thought was good about a particular company, what they thought was not necessarily great, etc. If that makes sense for everyone. And this will be wide open, so our guests can jump in at any time. We're not going to do the meeting rules.
These are all the references?
Yeah, and there are copies, of course, if you want to grab and get a little more in depth on any one particular one. So we had decided on Peachtree, Caliber 1, blue, green, and red, Cook, and Spratland and Son as being the 5 lowest bids. So that's the ones we'll be concentrating on.
And then, okay, yeah, cool. I guess, Mark, you sent out an email. I don't know if it made it around to everybody or not, but all of the references and information for each of the top 5. Did everybody see that or not?
No.
The one from Mark, that Mark put together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that came from Carolyn, sent that around to everybody, I think.
Not reference, I got this.
I didn't get Paul forwarded that over to me.
Yeah, I didn't.
And Paul's, I don't have everybody on council, I didn't have an email address, so I got it.
No, I know, but I think Carolyn sent that on. I thought she sent it on. I thought everybody was on that list.
Yeah, I think that it.
That's what's copied here in front of you by the by. She just
Well,
she took it out page by
I was
page and
assuming
printed
it
it
was
out.
these that you were talking about. The references, or the...
That's
Yes.
the references. Yeah,
I didn't get that.
Not,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
think
references.
anybody got that.
Yeah. Okay, I misunderstood.
Right. Yeah, but that's them printed out right there. That's
Okay.
all of them, I guess. Is that right? Is that what we have there?
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, took a. Hey,
I'm
Carolyn.
glad you did that.
I don't know. Yeah. So if you didn't get to see it, sorry. But I took a little bit of time to look at the references and just kind of see what they submitted as like comparable projects. And from what I could tell, one that didn't look, unless I missed something, like Cook General Contractors had 4 references there, 3 of which were under $2,800, and the other one was a project for $600,000. So they only had 4 references, and it sounded like their jobs were smaller, typically, than the type of project we were looking at. So that's one thing to consider. I thought the best references came from Peachtree and Construction and Spratland and Sons. They looked like they worked in the same sort of categories as the work that we are looking to have done.
That's the lowest and the highest there. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Spratland and Sons, they had like a 15-page thing with multiple different places that they worked for. One of them being Athens, Clark County Library and stuff like that. They've done some projects with them, and all over. But they definitely focus more on like government, municipality buildings than others. And then the other thing that on Mark, is it correct in saying that this is the only things that are not included? Like
Yes.
these are not. Everything else would be
Right, so, and I may have it in a different, the way I had it set up as well is maybe a little bit more landscape format than maybe. But if there wasn't a special delineation as far as any additional items, then there weren't anything additional there.
Did BGR give any references or just the sheet?
What you see is what we got.
Yeah, that's what they.
Okay. You know, I looked at, obviously, the pricing,
Yeah.
you know, the website, and I didn't have the references, so kind of my perspective is, you know, it's a commercial building, but it's residential. So I kind of took that approach, and so I just kind of went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and said these are my top 5 in order.
Perfect.
And my number 1, and I think and I have to admit, it's probably the underlying deciding factor is price, because once I looked at it, I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm getting from Spratling for, you know, $70,000, $50,000 more than
Right.
the other one. So,
Right.
so that might have swayed me there. So Peachtree is the one I thought they had a lot of commercial business, but I liked the looks of the residential. I thought they had a good place. My second one was Cook. In my third and fourth, I floated between Blue Green and Spratling. And then Caliber 1, I just thought they did a lot of build-outs of strip malls. I didn't see anything else except, you know, strip mall build-outs, so no freestanding structures. So I would go Peachtree, Cook, maybe Blue Green, because they were cheaper and they're local, and then Spratling. And that's not doing with any references, just
Right.
based on what I have, so.
Mark, I have a quick question. I don't want to get too into the weeds, but any thoughts on how the various categories are so wide apart? I mean, you know, they all end up in the same area, but
Right, and there's. I like to focus, you know, on the ones that are closer together, just because to me that tells me that they spent more time on those specific items, whereas on some of the other things they said, square footage we know about, and then they put a number, but at the same time they, with their experience, they knew where they would need to be in the end, and that's where you see some of that. To me, you know, the mobilization and demobilization is where they really caught up,
Right.
or not caught up, as the case may be, on a lot of that. That's the fudge factor as far
What
as
is that? Okay.
that is.
That was my thing, because there's such a big discrepancy
That is-
between
that is-
4,000 and 90,000.
That is truly getting their people and their equipment to the site and from the site. So,
mobilization and demolition.
but it's also profit and overhead. It's also, that is where you, if we did not put in a line item for mobilization and demobilization, that would have got put somewhere else. Let's say that. Let's say we said, well, we're not going to put in a line item for this, but we're going to put in a line item for traffic control. Although this project would have virtually no traffic control, then they would have plugged numbers in, and that's just my experience. And I say that as a joke, but I've had projects where I've had traffic control that changed, where there wasn't really a traffic control element, but we left that line item in, and a number showed up in traffic control that was, it's just, that is where everything else gets shoved.
So
But what
like-
it's genuinely supposed to be is, and if you could think, in theory, if a company was 10 miles away, their mobilization and demobilization costs would not be as much as a company that was 300 miles away. Just getting people here, or hey, if somebody can sleep in their own bed at night versus staying in a hotel, or whatever it might be, then there's some drastically different costs associated with that.
The other one was the site grading, because,
Yeah, right.
you know, it was like
Yeah.
Peachtree.
Most of the other ones were, you know, between
9 grand.
20 or less, and then Cook was at 70,000 for site grading.
And then Peachtree is even a lot lower than everyone else.
And then, but so for me, what I saw on that, or what I took from that too, is how they divided up paving. Right, so if and especially since you've chosen not to have traditional asphalt paving throughout your parking lot, if a majority of your paving is that, you know, great aggregate base, so if
Should be cheaper, right?
well, if they're having their site contractor do that, versus if you, in my mind, if you put the site grading and the paving number in together, then it starts to look a little bit more reasonable, because the people that are really low on site grading seem to be much higher on paving, but the people that are really low on paving seem to be a lot higher on site grading. So that's where that number, because there was some serious discrepancies there, but because there's not a lot of traditional paving on this, there's still some paving numbers on here, and that's really as far as, all right, did you, which subcontractor did that come in?
What
under?
bucket did they put this in and that?
Right. Who's bringing the rock? You know.
Yeah, because the top half seemed to be more site and that stuff, and the bottom half seemed to be more structural. As far as your list went.
And then, so, just to clarify, because this looks a little bit different than this, and from what I read in the bid documents, is where it says the bids do not include, say for caliber 1, where it says those two items, 2,500 and 12,000. It was on this sheet, it's subtracted out from the total proposal, but on this sheet, it looks like it's an additional to what the bottom proposal is.
Right.
I don't
So
know which one is.
well,
right.
there's two lines. So and again, this is the way it was formatted in Excel, but I'm not sure. Everybody other than Caliber 1 included that additional RFI information in their proposal amount.
Mhm.
But Caliber 1 took those two RFI informations, separated them out, and that was part of what we discussed at the last meeting. They appear to have the second lowest number until you actually put those numbers in, and then now they're number 3.
Right.
And because that was stipulated in the documents that were sent to everybody, so everybody else included those in. I don't know if it was a point of clarification or that Caliber 1 thought, well, nobody else is going to put them in except for an RFI or a clarification, so we're just going to add them on the end as well.
And then the only other question was with blue, green, and red construction. I thought they said at one point, like the fire alarms, I saw on one thing that they had said $6,000 or something like that for fire alarms, and then is that included in this, or it doesn't include it?
They specifically excluded that, and I did not reach out to them to say, hey, do you have an estimate?
Right.
Do you have a guess? I think, we had talked about what's a range or what maybe some other people had used as some line items, but blue, green, red did not specify a number for fire
I
alarms.
thought I saw it on their proposal that they did say something like
I thought it was
Right,
6,300.
It's right there, if you want to grab it and see if you can thumb it up.
In the stack.
But yeah, on this, I saw what it said, it does not include.
So, back to the mobilization, 'cause I looked at the Peachtree, and it looked like they were out of Atlanta, but when I looked on their website, they almost had an address that was
They've got a
Duluth,
they
even
got
closer.
Well, they had the Decula.
Decula, that's what I'm thinking about, yeah.
So
maybe that's why their mobilization is lower. I don't know why blue, green, I always want to call them red, white, blue, but blue, green, and red.
Yeah.
What flag is
It costs
that?
$94,000, and they're local, they're in Athens.
Right. Yeah. But you were saying that's kind of their where they can make up, things where they put a little bit lower here or there, yeah.
Well, their overhead and profit may be in that. I don't imagine the overhead and profit is in Peachtree's mobilization number. It's probably dispersed
And all this over here.
throughout all the numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'd have to be.
makes more sense.
it's all in equipment.
Yeah.
I'll put the bag at you for you. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Huh. So even if you break it down, you can't really compare apples to apples, sort of.
It's always a struggle. So we try to break it down as much as we can to see, but then it's really just different. And if a company doesn't do anything, if they just manage, then they each have subcontractors and they can decide who subcontractors do. But if a company does everything and they don't subcontract out any task item, then they can move those numbers around as much as they want to because it's all in house.
Yeah.
Or if you think about if you were building your own home, if you did it all yourself, well, how much does it cost?
Yeah.
But if you had to pay each individual subcontractor, you would know exactly to the penny what you were writing that check for.
Is there a benefit to have somebody do it all or to subcontract? Or is that not really?
It's just a responsibility standpoint. At the end of the day, the town will only be dealing with one entity, and you're only responsible for dealing with that
Should
one
be
entity.
transparent, yeah.
That's right.
Did you guys find what you were looking for? Have I got that file?
I don't think it's.
Oh, yeah, I can, yeah, I can, but, so, yeah, so given as much, you guys have probably done as much research on this, as any of us have, and you're in the field more so than we are, so, given the information that you've been able to gather, do you all have recommendations of, you know, what you think the council should go for, you know, or whatever?
I'll let somebody else go first.
Well, I think it's hard to go against the low number. And they're reasonably local.
Yeah, you're talking 25,000 between them and the next one.
So you don't think that because they are so much lower, that those numbers are gonna start changing as we go into the project?
Yeah, that's built in, isn't it, to try to protect against that sort of thing? And
You know, there's certainly not guarantees for anything, but we would want to structure the contract in such a way that they were tied to a base number, that any additional items did have to come back. You're expecting something, and that was actually in one of the references. I believe it was about Peachtree and the historic Reed House. The comment was, well, there were change orders, but they were client requested change orders, or they were, hey, can if you're midstream in a project, hey, can we do this? Well, you can, but it's going to cost $2,000 more. Okay, but we want to do it.
Sure.
So that's a decision. I'm always more suspect of the ones that say, no, we didn't have any change orders, there were none whatsoever. Because if that's the case, then you had so much profit built into the job anyway, then you didn't fuss over a few $100s here or there. I would expect some change orders. There may be some opportunities for value engineering as well. I don't know, Morgan, if you have experience with any of these specific companies, or
The only person I'm concerned with is the Garland and Associates. They've done 4 buildings for me and brought them in on time and in a reasonable change order amounted to about less than 10% kind of thing.
yeah, does that seem about average for you, Morgan? Change orders, I know there'll be some. Does 10% seem reasonable?
Yeah, and he's right about that. It's all over the gamut of reasons for the change orders.
Yeah.
If you have a client change the thing, it's a cost. If you have a trade-off where if you're using a product and you want to use a brand name versus what your allowance is that he's already got figured, they can give you credit or either charge you more, whatever, but somebody has to keep track of that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing gets out of hand toward that. When you get 80% finish, you're going to spend 97% of the money.
Yeah.
So just about it. So you've got to be real careful in that.
Okay.
That's all I say. If you lock in the change order process, that every single thing doesn't come back as a change order.
Right.
And you also got the guy sitting right here. If you can't be changing things, once we lock it in, you can't change it. I mean, you can make suggestions all you want to, but unless you got a lot of dollars in your pocket,
Yeah.
that's where the problem comes in.
Okay.
There's all the people suggested changes, because you can't visualize anything until you get it built. Well, if you have to tear it down and start over, then you got 2 costs, okay?
Right.
So that's why the change order, whatever you say, let's go with one thing, and make up your mind in the beginning. That's the only thing that's a suggestion.
Okay.
Because I look after all the construction costs in Walton County that we build, and that's the biggest problem I have with is all the outside suggestions coming in and change orders or changing things that they particularly want to. And what happens is the cost just gets all out of that.
Okay.
We have a no change order policy.
We've changed it enough.
Yeah.
I don't think we can change it anymore.
Just wait.
Please, yeah, just please be careful. I mean,
Yeah.
I know what you want. You want a nice place at a reasonable cost and things.
Sure.
And we can get there with all the help we've got and all the experience we've got too. But what we have to do is have a lot of cooperation.
And how well do you think we nailed down, David, like the fit and finishes, as far as, like, we didn't specify like a manufacturer for windows, right? We just said that they need to be aluminum clad or whatever we said, right? Is that, yeah, okay, gotcha, yeah. It's, you know, some of those things, they can be a large variance in, say, a Marvin window versus, you know, a Window World window, you know? So it's like, yeah, I don't know. But you think that we're pretty solid as far as their expectations of the fit and finishes that we're looking for, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. It wasn't a specific manufacturer, but it was like the window, I believe, was spec'd as a solid PVC with window. And of course, code requires it has to be double insulated and with the E-coating.
And if you'll notice that the finishes numbers were actually across all 5 of those were really, really close. So that means David did a much better job on his plans than the civil engineer did. I will tell you from me going through the information that was submitted for references, I think that the most qualified company is probably Spratling. So I think Paul probably had an idea of that at the February meeting.
Yeah.
But the second most qualified is probably Peachtree. And in my opinion, I don't see $70,000 from a value standpoint worth the difference, specifically knowing how far $70,000 could go anywhere. But in the town of North High Shoals, $70,000 could go a long ways.
Mhm.
And so based on that, you know, I don't see any reason not to move forward with Peachtree.
I kind of agree with that after you look at the references and everything like that.
Yeah,
I
I'm leaning
completely
that
agree
way
with that
myself.
100%.
What I'd love to do is come away with a 1, 2, 3, if that works for everybody, just in case. I mean, you know.
I mean, I think I'm okay with just 2. I think, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I think he nailed it. Those are the 2. I mean, that are the ones. The other 3 didn't really give much references to those.
What does blue, green, and red look like? Because they keep popping up as, they were the mostly residential that weren't they?
Yeah, they're mostly residential,
Yeah.
and their references are.
Kind of remodeling.
They're doing a building in Aldi, that is in process right now. And then a custom home and a healthcare facility. Those are their 3 references here. But,
What are
I
we
mean,
trying to do more than just 1?
Oh, well, I'd love to have 3, you know, who knows, death in the family at Peachtree, and we can't help you out for 6 months at least, you know. We need to move on to number 2. Yeah, I don't expect that. I hope I'm not cursing anything, but I thought it would behoove us to have 1 or 2 in our pocket in case, just in case, number 1, for whatever reason,
Are all of
doesn't
them,
work out.
are all of them licensed properly? Did anybody check and make sure they're all licensed?
I gotta believe that was part of
Yeah,
the.
they had to submit that.
Yeah.
No, we're not actually voting tonight, but I would love to walk away from this with the top 3. And you can keep it in any order you want to in your head, and then at our next meeting, we go ahead and vote. And say, this is the one we want. If we can't have this one, this is our second
Peachtree 1,
option.
Cook 2, Spratling 3.
Sprouting, okay.
And that's without looking at a lot of this stuff here.
Okay.
And I could go either way with the Spratling. Based off your comment, maybe I'd switch those 2. So
Yeah.
I'll have to say this, that I won't be at our next meeting. I'll be out of town. And right now, given, you know, everybody's input, my number 1 vote would be for Peachtree Construction. Because they did come in at the lower bid, and they do have the relevant work experience that I'd like to see. And so that's where I would start with, and then, you know.
Do you have a preference for a backup?
Like a backup, I would go with maybe Spratland, even though it's that much more, it just seems like they still have, you know, they have a good idea of what they're doing, and they build quality buildings, and they do commercial, residential, they do all through the gamut, and, you know, work with local municipalities, and I think that they did that more than anybody else, and they kind of might have an idea of what the headaches could be involved with working with municipalities, so maybe that's one of the reasons they're a little bit higher, but
Okay.
yeah, that's what I would say.
What do you think, Ann?
I like Peachtree and then,
Seems like a solid choice thus far.
Blue Green and Red Construction and Spratland Sun.
Okay.
Or if I could flip the Spratland Sun, the 3 is
Go
blue.
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jason, you were,
Peachtree and Fountain.
okay. Okay.
So it sounds like our 1, 2 is Peachtree and Sprouting.
Sounds right, yeah. All right, maybe technically we could have voted, but I still would love an extra 2 weeks. I know, hurry up, and now let's wait.
I thought that's what we were doing tonight. I thought we were voting tonight, no?
Just a discussion.
No, it's to get this part done, so when we do meet next
Yeah.
time, and we can still open it back up, but hopefully, you know, you got your mind made. And I don't think, you know, it's $500,000 of the people's money, so 2 more weeks, I think, is a reasonable thing to do.
Did Paul and Jason have a third choice? Did you have a third choice?
I did not submit a third, just from looking at from looking at the 5 that we had narrowed it down to, I looked at those 2, and those were the 2 that I considered to be, you know.
Yeah, that's good. I think we need at least one backup. Do any of our guests have any other inputs that you think might help us out?
The only question I would have, and as you might imagine, requesting these additional references or documentation, while it probably wasn't strange for one company, for some of the other companies that said, wait a minute, we've seen the list, we know we're not the low, you know, what's going on here? I didn't respond to that.
Okay.
I didn't feel it was necessary because council has made no decisions yet.
Right.
At some point in time, we will need to inform whomever, after there's a vote, of however we're moving forward. And so I just want to make sure that you understand from my communication standpoint, all I've done is ask these questions. I haven't responded positively, negatively, or indifferently to any particular firm. But at some point, when council makes a decision, you'll have to say, and now move forward with contract negotiation. And also, my understanding from each of these firms is they submitted wanting to begin the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's a preferred company and a preferred choice on 2 weeks from tonight, it would need to be clear as far as contract, notice to proceed, construction beginning, because if council has an expectation or the town has an expectation, all right, construction will begin by May 1st, April 15th, whatever it might be, then that needs to be relayed to the contractor as well. Or if there's a different expectation of finances, budget, money, whatever it might be,
Sure.
and we, for whatever reason, could not start construction at a given time, that also needs to be relayed. Because if these companies have crews and they're working and they're moving, and they say this is going to be our North Shoals Town Hall crew, we need to give them the ability to maneuver into that. So
Did they qualify their price to a time limit?
they did not, but they've, now that I've asked them that question, the question has been coming back. Do you have a time? Do you have a firm?
Yeah,
And I haven't responded with that because
The reason I say that is because lumber prices
Are going up.
Well, they're starting to get hurt.
So so you need to notify the people that we don't pick too, correct?
that's correct. And that's just, we don't have to legally. That's just courtesy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Sure,
what I'm
it's
asking
better.
is that we get one, we can't, I don't want to just leave someone else hanging either, so we need to make sure which way we go.
Yeah, well, as I say, the plan is voting definitively at the meeting 2 weeks from tonight. This is the company we're using. This is our number 2 in case these guys can't make it.
That's my understanding.
And that's that. Now, between now and then, I'm gonna talk I'm gonna figure out the financing stuff. And that'll be discussed at that meeting as well, but I see no reason not to say after that meeting, we're good to go if these guys can start April 1st. maybe second, skip that. Cold stat.
Well, that's usually-
I'm okay starting 2 weeks in one day,
Yeah.
whatever date that is.
If they, and, you know, if they can do it, I hope to be able to say, you know, we're good to go if you are.
Another quick question is, as they're doing construction, what does that mean for the park?
Yeah, that's a good point. I assume parking will be severely impacted. Also assume you'll still be able to get there. I don't see any problem. You never see more than 4 or 5 cars there at any given time unless there's an event.
I'm just talking about with
Baseball.
construction and kids and all
Um,
that stuff. How are you
They
reading?
can park in the, they can
It
park
has
in the
to be
grass.
clearly separated.
Okay.
They can park in the grass, and we could even put a new drive in there.
To be clearly
If we had
separated
to.
because of legal reasons.
Okay, even the
Because
drive.
children, and we may have to put the orange fence in or put something up that they cannot wander from over here over to over here because the hazard is over here where we're constructing.
Okay.
From your standpoint of liability.
Yeah. We may have
Now, is
to
that
put
something
a
they
second
would do, or
driveway
we would
in.
need to do that? They would do all that? Okay.
And you can't come in through the construction area to get to the park, by the way, either.
Right.
Construction area has to be separated clearly from.
We've already got 2 gates there. One of those could be like the construction entrance and the
Well,
other one-
unfortunately, they'll be paving,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
or, you know, what I see is maybe putting up a new drive. Yeah, that's a shallow ditch.
Yeah.
Even if we had to put a temporary pipe in there and
If you
it.
threw the pipe in and put one in for construction,
Right.
see, we could keep those people on that. And
Yeah.
it's clearly gotta be separated, because I have the awfulest time with people getting tangled up in my construction traffic and everything. And we have had some fender benders in there because they're backing up trying to get out of there and they've run over something.
That's a good point.
And we're still liable. The second they enter it, we're liable because they got their start.
Yeah, you know, the whole Little League season's coming up, so.
It may be all over the place.
Yeah.
Looking for
Yeah.
parking.
And there's not gonna be any parking.
Maybe
I don't
they
know,
can
that's
park
a-
at the school.
That's a big grassy, you know what, we may need to limit them to the school.
Yeah.
That's not a bad walk there.
If the school's okay with it, yeah, just to be grass through the.
Yeah, can we check on that?
I will.
As soon as possible and see what they say. That's a great solution.
So is that seem pretty within the norm, waiting for the 2 weeks, make the decision to move? It's not too delayed, considering the 4 years we've been going?
Right.
I will reach out for confirmation on schedule within this 2 weeks, just to confirm. And I won't provide any other information. You know, it's, fortunately for the town, you have the benefit to kind of flow that information in a one-way direction and to say, council hasn't made a decision yet, because council hasn't made a decision yet. But I can just ask for that clarification, from a time frame standpoint. It's not necessarily, if they just put it in an email, it's not legally binding, but it shows their intent, and then we can go from there. But I don't know that anybody really knows as far as there was this meeting tonight. They would probably expect, since there wasn't a decision at the February meeting, they would expect a decision at the March meeting, good or bad. They would expect a decision, and I think it would probably be a disservice to the town and to the contractors to delay that to April.
No.
Yeah, I don't see it being delayed. I just think if we needed to do it earlier.
I think you're on track as long as it's a firm answer
The
on the
cost
19th.
is usually 30 to 45 days. And it is changing right, he's right, it is changing right now, almost every week. We're having people coming back with horror stories that are building people's contracts with a locked-in price, that they're trying to pre-purchase everything they can because they can't. When they get there, there's 15% more difference, and you only had 8% started at the start.
Yeah, how much steel and aluminum?
Well,
is
good thing
gonna
it's
be on this
wood.
building?
Not much.
That low,
Okay.
the low bids on this thing does not have a lot of room in it. So, I can tell you from past experience.
Okay.
And then, do we have available to us now, just for our own knowledge, what the SPOS funds are at, what we have actually have accrued for this, and what we expect to continue to have in place? I thought we had somewhere around like 375,000 or something like that. in SPOS funds already for this building project, and then more to come, but,
My sense is we have between 60 and 75%
Yes, let me get that. Thanks, Dave.
cash
I had
essentially
said
ready
that.
to go. My job this next 2 weeks will be to figure out what makes the most sense for the rest of it. Do we pull that out of money market, because we have that?
right.
Is it smarter to take a low-interest loan from GMA or some other source? I mean, yeah, I'm not a finance guy, I don't know. I'm sure, reason says just if you can get the cash, take it in cash, and be done with it. But I'm gonna check around and make sure we're doing the smartest thing.
Yeah. Seems
You,
like we should do that.
Mark, you work with Watkinsville in the county, I presume.
Just the city, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about calling the county or talking to John and seeing who does their finance stuff when and if they need to do that sort of thing. Because you can.
Yeah, I'm not in charge. I'm sure there's plenty of banks that'd be happy to help you figure out how to spend your money. But, yeah, so I'm not on the financial side.
Yeah, I don't think we're having any trouble getting.
Yeah, these are- the bank statements actually.
Again, if we want to go that route. And I don't know, it's all, you all get your monthly updates on yeah, we're financially, we're fine. Just a matter of the smartest way to do it. Going forward, it'll be interesting, because we did not get that tax raise last time, so we'll see what it costs,
And, not all of this was allocated for town hall.
operational wise. But again, I don't think we'll run into any major issues. I don't want to keep anybody later than necessary. Anyone have anything else?
So which three or two?
The top, the top and the
Peachtree
bottom.
and Spratling.
Streets about.
The top and, or the highest and lowest.
Peachtree is 1, Spratling 2. But we've got the 2 just in case something happens to the 1. So.
So really, it sounds like Peachtree is gonna be our initial.
Yeah, barring any
Right.
awfulness, yeah.
Is that wood? Is this wood?
Yeah.
Does knocking on wood actually makes me feel better. Okay, well, if there's nothing else from anyone, I will thank you for showing up and attending and having this conversation, and we'll meet again in a couple weeks from tonight and set it in stone, okay? Thanks. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.